Greetings from the Will Forum. Once again, I'm back with all of you from the misty mountains of Satal. And today we have a very cloudy and a very stormy day. It's almost black outside in the photo that you see. But that is what the universe will give us, and that is the way we're going to work with the universe. Today, we're very delighted to have our second Will Executive Board series. And most delighted to have Jyotsna Ghoshal, who is our executive board member. And Jyotsna today is going to give us a nice brief on what exactly does she think will be the key components of the next phase of women in leadership. Jyotsna, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Thank you so much, Poonam, for the really gracious introduction. I'm really excited, first of all, to be a part of the advisory board for the Women for Will Forum, and just to continue the agenda that you have led just so strongly and made such a strong impact. Just from my background perspective, I am a public policy and communications professional for the past, say, 23 years. And currently, I am with Johnson & Johnson. I am the enterprise lead for government affairs and policy, in charge of all of the businesses in India for government affairs and policy and for delivering on those goals. Just a further introduction is that I am also a woman leader. As you can see, and what makes me really proud is that women are more and more starting to break the glass ceiling and starting to get to these hot jobs, these top positions. And, I feel extremely proud of where women are today in the corporate world. But at the same time, when I look at the task ahead of us and how much more there is still to be achieved, extremely daunted as well. So grateful to be here and look forward to our discussion.
Yeah, so, these are the kind of landmarks that we have to quickly close. I don't believe in journeys. We just have to take it as a target, and we just have to close the gender gap for women on top. It's a very simple mission, and I don't feel daunted at all. I think that if we have a structure and if we're totally committed, we are going to finish the job between people like yourself and other women and men who actually believe that balanced leadership will lead to innovation, competitive edge, better ideas, more progress, better business, and better social impact. Now, I wanted to just ask you a quick question first about public policy, because I think that most of the people I know, especially women, are not in public policy. And I think public policy is a great ladder to getting into what I call a decision-making position that affects national policy. Why so few women in public affairs?
I can't really say why so few women in public affairs, because there are few women in so many functions. It's not to do with specifically public affairs. I won't call that out. I would just say that there are fewer women in a lot of leadership functions, and they are very traditional sort of areas where women are seen to be boxed. And that's changing. And I would say that, you are increasingly seeing more women take on positions in public policy and areas like this, especially when you look at public policy in the area of health. I mean, women have such a strong role to play. Women are the custodians of the health of their families, or health of the nation is really what I would say. And women have a very strong role to play in being a voice in public policy. And in changing public policy for the betterment of the health of the society and of the nation, because they're at the fulcrum of all of that. So just like every other sphere, I think women bring in a very diverse and separate perspective.
So being with Johnson & Johnson, this is clearly a company that works both for business and for communities at the same time, because you can't have pharma without having wellness. So, in the next phase, which is now, as I always say, during the lockdown months, we actually went past many centuries in our thinking. So, in this new era, what do you think will be the key roles for companies like Johnson & Johnson, especially when it comes to wellness and the role of women in compassion, empathy, both of which are a critical component of wellness?
So Johnson & Johnson has been in the country literally since India's independence. And we've been a part of India's healthcare as well as India's economic growth. We operate in vision care, we operate in medical devices, in consumer health, and in pharmaceuticals with a very, very large sort of presence in the country. I think companies such as ours have a very strong role to play, as we've seen through the pandemic. And we've also seen beyond that, Poonam. Companies such as ours have an extremely strong role to play in addressing healthcare issues, in being innovative, in providing access to much needed healthcare products, to devices, to addressing healthcare challenges through our innovation, for example, the COVID-19 vaccine, and also innovations in trying to address the government's challenges around self-reliance and others, and partnering with different stakeholders to do all of that. And to be able to do that, getting women into the center of the debate, women's health into the center of the debate, and getting an innovative, diverse opinion from women, and getting a culturally diverse workforce remains an important objective. There's a lot of work that J&J has done around that area, and will continue to do so. And I feel extremely proud to be part of this organization that's made such a huge impact. I hope that I can carry this entire sort of agenda forward more and more as I contribute to the company now. Of course, it's been 4 months, but just the kind of work that the company's done is something that I think I feel extremely proud to be a part of.
Yeah, very pioneering, I think, for many years, and also with high integrity. That's, if you ask me, what does Johnson & Johnson stand for? I probably will find these two words most compatible for the company. Now, in the case of, the men who have been in decision making for a long time, including on boards, in the new era, are we really looking at a new mindset? Do you seriously think that there is a new mindset, and what is it going to look like in the men?
So Poonam, that's a really interesting question. So the one thing where and this is something that you and I have discussed in the past as well. You cannot have a conversation about diversity without being diverse with the audience and with the people who are participating in that conversation. You cannot make it a women-only conversation and then say we're being diverse. Men play a really, really important role in the balanced leadership agenda. And that's something that, even at J&J, we've done a lot of work around this entire sort of initiative that J&J has put together of something called equalizing conversations, and where we ensure that we're celebrating men and women at the same pace and space as the society around us is changing at a fast-paced sort of way. And the only way that we can make this conversation inclusive is by bringing men on the stage and bringing that cumulative effect. I'll just give you an example. I mean, at J&J, for example, we decided to celebrate Father's Day and not Mother's Day, and not for any other reason, but to have the fathers talk about things like paternity leave, the role of fathers in bringing up children, the role of fathers in the entire domestic ecosystem and in the family ecosystem, therefore sensitizing and making this a win-win both for women and for men, rather than making it, about sort of pointing fingers. So, and having equalizing conversations. And that is something that I think is really important. Men have always played a very important role in setting the agenda for corporate society and corporate world. But I think, taking a hard stance and taking diversity in one space where we say only women have a role or women can discuss diversity is then us not being inclusive. And bringing the men into the conversation is what has really helped in taking the agenda forward, especially at J&J, and that's the experience that we've had. So we're trying to make it a safe space where everyone feels that they belong, and we can have equalizing conversations.
Yeah, well, the conversation we need with the men is on leadership. The conversation we need, as far as we are at the Will Forum, is what are the men going to do about redefining leadership in a way that the women also see? the leadership style of men and women is not the same. Okay, that's the best part of it, that it's not the same. So they can complement each other. And if we don't have the leadership style of women, the companies are missing out. So, where do we get the men to have conversations? I mean, we do that in the Will Forum for the last decade. We've got a lot of men. Our founding members are all men from KPMG, Infosys, and Tata Consultancy Services. But how do we get more let's say middle level managers? I'm just asking in companies, say like Johnson and Johnson, to raise the bar of the conversation from equal to leadership.
So, that's a great point, Poonam. And leadership is something that can only be demonstrated. If you're just going to be talking about it, and if you're just going to be issuing memos, and if you're just going to be saying, this is my vision, that's not enough. It has to be demonstrated. So and that's what we're seeking here. We're seeking male leaders who are at the top of the, sort of corporate chain, who other men, colleagues can follow, and who they can see as leading the change. So if you find one or two of these champions, and if you're able to work with them on the leadership agenda, on defining the leadership agenda and then advocating it, that is what is going to start with the change in the organization. And that's what we're doing. And then you have other managers, you have middle managers, and you have others who are seeing that change being demonstrated, who are seeing that change being then made an example of, and therefore are then slowly adapting it. It's about changing the culture, but bit by bit. And I'm a strong believer in baby steps. And I think the baby step over here that we need to take is really the tone from the top, but tone from the top in a way that's demonstrating the change rather than just talking about it. And then have others be groomed into that role. So it's a cultural shift. I do agree. But it's something that, that starts with that conversation and with demonstrating change from the top.
I'm so glad you say that, because if you see my interview with our Will Executive Advisory Board Chair, Harita Gupta, who's the country head of Sutherland for India, she said exactly the same thing as you said, that the change has to be driven from the top by the CEO. In other words, women in leadership, or having balanced leadership, which is a word I've been using for almost 10 years, because it makes everybody comfortable and there's a no threat element involved in this. Balanced leadership should be a CEO agenda, and it needs to be driven. Now, the pace of change will differ from company to company. Now, there will be companies like Sutherland that may have Exchange or IBM, and then there will be Johnson and Johnson that has its own change. So the pace of change is, I think, something that each company has to own. What is your thinking in terms of the social impact that companies will be making for women in leadership? When I say social impact, I mean, is it really just a business agenda, or can we escalate it to a community agenda?
First of all, it is a business agenda, Poonam. And I have to say that, if you keep diversity and balanced leadership as a philanthropy or as something good to do, and it is not deep rooted into the business agenda, it'll be difficult to own it. It'll become like a offshoot of some activity that you're doing, and it won't get the due importance. And very frankly, there is a lot of business rationale for diversity and diversity and inclusion, both in terms of diverse ideas as well as diverse implementation. So first of all, we have to acknowledge it is a business agenda, and it needs to be acknowledged as such right up front, that this is not a good to do thing. This is a business agenda. It's good for the business. It's good to have more diverse opinions. It's good to have more women in leadership. It's good to have more women voices, more women insights into your customer speak, because it's for your business. So that's the first part. The second thing is, can we drive social change by doing this? Yes, we can. Absolutely, we can. And it will drive social change, because any organization that has a wide footprint, that has products that touch millions of lives, that has products that touch across the board, including women, can make that social impact if they bring in diversity into their entire agenda. They have communities that work with them, that depend on them, partners, suppliers, communities around their, facilities, etc., and everything. And that social change can come with strong purpose, strong compassion, and that can definitely come. And it is something that I would say, is something that definitely can happen. If nothing else, COVID has really taught us how leaders who lead from the front compassionately every day in most turbulent times can really lead the change that is required to make that entire social change, whether it is in the physical workplace or it is around for societies that we work in. So yes, that can come. But at the same time, what I'd like to say is we should not shy away from saying that this is a business agenda, first of all, because the moment we say that it is something we want for the good of women, we're losing that entire debate then. We're just saying, do it for me because it's something that you should be doing because it's good for me. No, it's good for you. It's good for the business. It's good for the organization. And that's why we're doing it. And at the same time, yes, we have the opportunity with organizations such as Johnson & Johnson, which have such a strong footprint in a country like India, to make the social impact as well.
I'm so glad to hear you say that. It's been such a struggle for me for 10 years to keep on saying that the business of business is business. And, business means wealth creation. It doesn't mean money, it doesn't mean profits, it means value, which means wealth creation. And it is, the more we amplify it, the more we get people like yourself to continue to say it, it's going to get amplified and it's going to get heard. There's no such thing as a good thing to do. That's a higher purpose, which goes beyond business. So it's good to embrace business and then embrace the higher purpose. And if you can do both together. So what would be your thoughts? My final question always deals with the boardroom. I think that, the board of directors are the custodians of business ownership. So what is your thinking about women on boards, in the sense that how does the governance agenda on boards or companies get embraced, embedded?
We start the journey really, Poonam, by first accepting that there is a gap. I think to me, having been with different organizations and also interacted with a number of organizations, such as yours, I think it starts first with saying that there is a gap and accepting that gap. And that acceptance of the gap has to be done organizationally at the board level to understand there is a gap. So first is the acceptance of the gap and understand what is the gap. And then, really that deep wish to bridge the gap and the reasons why we want to bridge that gap. So it has to start there. So, so accepting the gap, understanding what is the gap, and then do we really want to wish to bridge the gap? Or is it just because it's the done thing and it's this sort of go-to thing these days and it'll make for good narrative, etc., or something? And then after that, we need to be sharp and focus on what is the problem that we're trying to solve for and why we exist. So these two questions are driven by our purpose. So the clarity any organization needs is what shift they want to make. And shifts happen then only when the entire ecosystem shifts and not just chasing a number. It can't just be X percentage on the board or X percentage in middle management, etc. That's a good beginning, sure. But before that, even before that, why do we exist? Do we genuinely believe as a board there is a gap? And if we do, then are we committed to bridging that gap? And then start working on the entire ecosystem, which includes the infrastructure, the policies, the processes, the leadership commitment, the sponsorship, the definition of the experience we want to create for anyone who works in the organization. And at the heart of it, really, what is the human need that will be addressed by this change? What is the organizational need that will be addressed by this change? So to ensure all of this is stitched together, the governance and the transparency of milestones is also very critical.
Nice, so nice to hear you. Now we know why we have Jyotsna Ghoshal, as a member of the Will Executive Advisory Board. The thinking is so aligned with where we want to go and what we want to achieve. And I have a feeling that, this is a really great start for the Will Forum and Johnson and Johnson. Of course, Jyotsna has been a great Will leader for over a decade. And absolutely delighted now that you brought with you all the good best practices of Johnson and Johnson also at the Will Forum, so that our many stakeholders and our many members and our huge amount of corporate followers can actually learn from some of the pioneering things that you do. So do you have any last words, Jyotsna, for our viewers?
No, I think Poonam just, obviously excited to be part of the board. And like I always say, a large part of what we do as women leaders is about paying it forward. So that's what I would really close with. That, if in our own way, beyond all of this, each one of us can pay it forward through forums such as this, or through even touching the lives of individual women leaders and setting up, helping being a part of setting up that ecosystem that I spoke about, I think we'll be able to go a great mile. At the same time, being conscious of the fact that I do think being a woman leader is also, we are very, very lucky in the current environment, in the current challenges that we face. So it's a testimonial to all of our hard work. So we need to celebrate ourselves, and we need to celebrate our successes at the same time as we continue to pave our path forward and to pay it forward as well.
Totally celebrating ourselves, Jyotsna. You will see the band under the Will Forum simply says Celebrating Women in Leadership. We've been doing it for 10 years now. And, I really go to sleep well at night because I always say to myself, if I've touched one life, I just want one. I don't want too many. If I've just touched one, I'm done. Because that one will spawn another 1,000 leaders. And the word I use is spawn because it is organic. You can't teach it to somebody. It's organic. It has to spawn from within. Most excellent, Jyotsna. We will be communicating with you back and hope to see you at the 13th Will Annual Conference. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much, Poonam. Thanks a lot. Been really good to connect again and talk to you.